Nose goes right now. It's not happening. How many of you guys are team dish soap on Slip and Slide? Just, you're pro dish soap? Okay. How many of you guys are like, I prefer not to break bones? Okay, yeah. Okay. Just seeing where we're at this morning. Good morning. It's great to be with you. My name is Katie, and I'm excited to be continuing this series this morning. If you're with us for the first time this morning and you're going, Songs of Summer, what is that? It's the series we've been doing all summer, looking at some spiritual, faith-based songs. Some of them are brand new to us. Some of them are old favorites to some of us. And we're looking at each one, and we're just looking at the deeper message and going, okay, what is this song about? What's the intentions of this song? And what is it that we're singing when we sing together here at church, or when we're putting on worship music in our car or in our home or wherever that may be? And at Eastwind, we believe that truth set to music is really, really powerful. It's one of those just basic things that we believe is an icon of the human experience. Truth set to music is just really powerful. And we've done different things each week, kind of looking at that power of how music can, kind of conjure up certain memories for you, or music can take you back to certain moments, or music can make you feel a depth of emotion, or realize you are actually in love with that person, or you're not actually in love with that person. Music can do all these different things for us. And as I was thinking about it this week, I was just thinking through my week and thinking about all the ways that music leaks into so many different moments in our lives. I love music, and so I'm the type of person that will put music on all the time, not to flex, but my Spotify numbers are amazing, okay? I'll put music on all the time, but even if I wasn't trying to, music just leaks into so many different moments in our lives. And I was even just thinking about my day yesterday. I was with family this weekend celebrating my parents' anniversary and my mom's birthday, and we all floated the river together yesterday. And I was thinking through just that one experience outdoors, so you wouldn't think there's a ton of music involved, but I was thinking through that experience, and I was thinking, okay, we all drove to carpool to leave a car behind at the river takeout, and as I was driving there, I was listening to music, and then I got there, and my brother was like 5 minutes behind me, and he pulled up. I beat him. It is what it is. I beat him, and he pulls up, and I was like, why are you so far behind? And he's like, I was listening to this song. It was really good. I missed my turn. I got distracted. And I was like, I can't even be mad. I do that all the time. If music is on, I will get to my destination 10 minutes late. It just happens every single time. I'll miss a turn. I'll get distracted. I go, oh, I love that song. And then we all got in my brother's car to go back up to, where you get in the river, and we're all saying, oh, put on this song. I want to show you this song. And we're all trading different songs back and forth. And my brother goes, put on this song. It'll show off the bass in my car. I was like, okay, whatever. Let's put it on. Let's hear how great your bass is. All these things, right? And we get in the water, and we're floating down the river, and every 15 minutes we're singing happy birthday to my mom, and everyone around us hates us for it, right? They're again with this group. They have 17 rafts, and they won't shut up, right? And we're happy birthday over and over, and none of us sound good. Nobody likes happy birthday. We all hate that, but we do it on every birthday anyway, right? You sit there, and everyone stares at you, happy birthday, everyone goes, it's just super awkward. But we do it all the time, and you start thinking through different moments in life and how often music leaks into it, whether or not we try for it to. Music is everywhere. It's a profound part of the human experience. It's something that transcends so many different cultures and spaces, and it has the ability to completely transform a moment. It has the ability to take a moment from something simple into something really magical. This is just in the melody of music that it can do this, and certain songs mean a lot to us because of what is inside of them. I am an amateur musician. I love playing music, and early on when I started doing some open mics and stuff like that years ago, just for fun, I played a random little bar in Georgia one week, a super obscure hole-in-the-wall place that had an open mic that night. I was like, great, let me jump in, and I would love to play it. And I played the first song, and it was decent. Nothing really came of it. It was, how it is, open mic, so you're half listening, but you're not really paying attention. You're hanging out with the people that you came with. And then the second song, I just said, hey, I said to the mic, hey, I'm gonna play another song here. It's a really beautiful song. It's Neil Young's Harvest Moon. If you know this song, if you love this song, there's a dance floor right here. Probably if you brought somebody and you're on a date, you should be dancing with them right now. And when I tell you Georgia loves this song, okay? I have never since gotten such a response to Harvest Moon, but everyone in there came down to the dance floor and had this nice, beautiful little romantic slow dance to this wonderful, wonderful love song. And I left that night and I went, music can shift a room in just an instant. Music can transform what is happening in a space, and the right song or the right message at the right time has the ability to completely shift what's going on. And so this morning, as we play, the song this morning is called So Will I. And as we play that this morning, I would invite you to maybe let your guards down just a little bit more than you're used to, and let this music carry you away a little bit. Let this music maybe speak to you in a different way than usual. And this might be a familiar song to some of you, and you might want to sing along. But I would just invite you, stay seated. If you want to sing along, that's great. If it's the first time you're hearing it and you want to just think about the lyrics, that's great. If you want to just kind of disconnect and close your eyes and just take in the sound, that's also a space that you can do this in. But however you want to engage with it, would you take just a second and listen to this song? We're singing So Will I this morning.
God of creation, there at the start, for the beginning of time. With no point of reference, you spoke to the dark and fleshed out the wonder of light. And as you speak, 100 billion galaxies are born. In the vapor of your breath, the planets form. If the stars were made to worship, so will I. I can see your heart in everything you made. Every burning star, a signal fire of grace. Your creation sings your praises, so will I. Syllable empty or void. For once you have spoken, all nature and science follow the sound of your voice. And as you speak, 100 billion creatures catch your breath, evolving in pursuit of what you said. If it all reveals your nature, so will I. I can see your heart in everything you say. Every painted sky, canvas of your grace. If creation still obeys you, so will I. Ooh, so will I. So will I. If the stars were made to worship, so will I. If the mountains bow in reverence, so will I. If the oceans roar your greatness, so will I. For if everything exists to lift you high, so will I. If the wind goes chase down my heart, all of my failure and pride. On a hill you created, light of the world, abandoned in darkness to die. And as you see, 100 million failures disappear, where you lost your life so I could find it here. If you left the grave behind you, so will I. I can see your heart in everything you've done, every part designed in a work of art. If you gladly chose surrender, so will I can see your heart in different ways, every precious one, a child who died to save. If you gave your life to love them, so will I. Like you would again 100 billion times. But what measure could amount to your desire? You're the one who never leaves the one behind.
It's one of those songs that, speaking from experience, you can listen to over and over again. There's 100 sermons in this song. There's 100 different lessons and understandings that we could take from this beautiful piece of music. But this morning I want to zoom in a little bit on how similar it is to some words of Scripture, particularly as it relates to what it has to say about nature. And you might use a different word for this. You might call it creation or the great outdoors. You might call it adventure is out there or always exploring. But whatever that means to you, to talk about this idea that we live on this beautiful, beautiful planet Earth, this is what we're going to be talking about today, is that intersection of God the Creator and the natural world. And I was deliberating, if there's anything I'm more of an excited amateur about than music, it's probably adventure and exploring and getting outside as much as possible. There have been times when it feels like I haven't been camping recently enough, and so I'll just put a hammock up in my backyard and sleep outside and pretend like I actually got to get outside and go on a little trip. I love, love, love the great outdoors. And if you're here this morning and you go, actually, Katie, you couldn't pay me enough money to wake up in a tent, then I'm really sorry for everything I'm about to say, because I just get really excited about it. So it kind of is what it is this morning, okay? But we're going to talk about that beautiful piece of nature, this planet that we're on. And as I thought about the stories I could tell from my own adventures, I realized this community is, on the whole, really also excited about nature. And you guys have just as many stories as I do, some of you many more. And so what I'm actually going to ask you to do, we turn to one another on Sunday mornings here at Eastwind and just ask questions and maybe meet somebody new around you. And so I'm going to ask you to do that and answer this question: what is a strong memory? I put that for those of you who hate nature so that you can say something mean right there, okay? So what is a strong memory you have involving nature? And you might go, well, it's the time that I figured out I hated nature. Let me tell you about this strong memory. But many of us also have moments where we've experienced the grandeur, the beauty, the awe-inspiring wonder of something in nature. It might have even just been driving home one day through a ridiculous snowstorm or something like that that made you catch your breath and go, this is so much power. It might have been a landscape that you saw or a trip that you went on that made you reflect and go, wow, that was something else. I've never experienced anything quite like that. But because I love to keep you on your toes, there's a little catch to this question this morning. Introducing the special show and tell edition. So what I'm going to do is give you a little extra time, and I would invite you to just go through your phone if you have a camera roll or you have maybe your Instagram or something like that, and show a couple of photos to the person next to you. I'm giving you full permission to go like 1995 on this and say, here's my album. I'm going to show you whether you want to see it or not. Okay? So you turn to a couple folks next to you and share what's a strong memory you have involving nature, and take a second. If you have some photos to go along with it, you can do a little show and tell presentation, okay, and show each other a couple of photos. What's a strong memory you have involving nature? Take just a second, finish up your stories. The first service, I couldn't bring them back. It was like 2 minutes. They're like, no, I have another 13,000 photos to show. Take your time, Katie. But many of us have that experience in some way or another of seeing something in nature. It could be as simple as the hummingbird feeder outside of your kitchen window, seeing something in nature that kind of makes us pause, makes us hesitate and think about our place in the world, or think about, for those of us who would say we're Christians, we believe that God created the world, make us think about the creator of the world. The natural world has this incredible ability to make us pause and think and consider our space on this planet. I love national parks. I love going to new national parks that I haven't been able to get to yet. And last weekend, I had the opportunity to go to Olympic National in Washington. And we spent a day at the tide pools during low tide, and it was just stunning. It was beautiful. We had the whole beach to ourselves for like 3 hours. I went with a couple of friends, and it just looked like this the whole time. And all weekend long, we kept seeing incredible things. We saw this at the tide pools. This starfish was about the size of my face, and this anemones were really cool. And we saw a lot of them, and my friend spent an entire afternoon trying to teach me the syllables in the word, and I have no clue. But one thing after another that we kept seeing and going, oh my goodness. And we kept looking at each other and saying, we're so small. In the best of ways, we're so small. This is absolutely insane. We pulled over on our drive out of the park. We pulled over because we were just driving by one pullover spot after the other that had views like this. And we got out and we just sat there and we just looked at this for a few minutes because it was too good to drive past one more stunning view after another. And we all have those different moments where we go, oh my goodness, it took my breath away. It was something else. But beyond even just the moment of feeling awe of seeing something powerful or something beautiful or something creative in nature, there was a research study conducted by the Barna Group that kind of breaks it down like this. It would say of those who are practicing Christians, the number one spiritual practice they have that they feel connected to God by would be prayer. But right here you have 24%, about a quarter of those who would say they're practicing Christians would say this is a spiritual practice for me. Not just it's something from time to time that is meaningful. It is a part of the way that I follow God. I spend time in nature for reflection. For those who would say they love Jesus but not the church, this was the camp I was in for some years. For those who would say that, they would say 32%, about a third would say this is a spiritual practice for them. And so even by the numbers, we see there is a huge draw to this as a spiritual action, engaging in nature as a physical, spiritual practice to connect us with God. This song, So Will I, is meaningful to many because it draws upon the natural world to speak about our relationship with God. And it echoes really closely the words of Psalm 19. And we're going to read this psalm together. Psalm 19 is an early poem from the Hebrew literature. It was written by a guy named David, King David. And this poem opens with speaking to the power of the natural world. It goes like this: the heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky proclaims the work of his hands. Day after day, they pour out speech. Night after night, they communicate knowledge. There is no speech, there are no words, that their voice is not heard. Their message has gone out to all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In the heavens, he's pitched a tent for the sun. It's like a groom coming from the bridal chamber. It rejoices like an athlete running a course. It rises from one end of the heavens and circles to their other end. Nothing is hidden from its heat. The instruction of the Lord is perfect, renewing one's life. The testimony of the Lord is trustworthy, making the inexperienced wise. The precepts of the Lord are right, making the heart glad. The command of the Lord is radiant, making the eyes light up. The fear of the Lord is pure, enduring forever. The ordinances of the Lord are reliable and altogether righteous. They are more desirable than gold, than an abundance of pure gold, and sweeter than honey, which comes from the honeycomb. In addition, your servant is warned by them. There is great reward in keeping them. Who perceives his unintentional sins? Cleanse me from my hidden faults. Moreover, keep your servant from willful sins. Do not let them rule over me. Then I will be innocent and cleansed from blatant rebellion. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable to you, Lord, my rock and my redeemer. And I don't know about you, but I was reading this psalm this last week, and it starts out pretty strong, and you're kind of tracking with it. There's the sky and the heavens and the sun, and it speaks to the glory of God. And then David just takes a really hard left turn, and all of a sudden we're in the law, and there's instructions, and he's weirdly excited about following laws, and he's saying things that I don't hear normal people say. Normally, when you give laws and rules to people, they don't get pumped about it, right? You don't see eyes light up and go, ooh, instructions, love these. But he's excited for some reason, and it feels like this odd left turn. We were talking about nature, and now we're talking about the law, and now he's praying. What is happening? I want to give you a quick map of where we're going this morning. This psalm effectively breaks into 3 sections, and each section has a speech. There's a different person or a different entity speaking in each section. So you have creation speech, which is a speech of praise. So that's the first 6 verses that we have, where it's talking about the power of God as manifested in creation. And then he takes that left turn into talking about the law. And now there's the law speech. And that's one of instruction. We're going to get into the details of all of this in just a second. That speech is one of instruction. And then the servant's speech, this is the writer, David, speaking. He's calling himself the Lord's servant. The servant's speech closes it out, and it's a speech that's actually just a prayer. It's a conversation between him and God. It's things that he needs to get off his chest and say to God. So we see these 3 pieces, and if you look at the song So Will I, it also really breaks down into the same kind of idea of looking at creation and then looking at the instructions that creation follows and the instructions we should follow, and then it turns into a prayer at the end. So we're going to look at each of these sections. These first 6 verses constitute this first section. It says this: the heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky proclaims the work of his hands. Many of you have heard this verse before. It's this poetic imagery that just talks about how you could see that someone painted the sky. I'm sure you've heard the expression when there's a beautiful sunset, people would say, the sky is painted so beautifully. This is that kind of imagery. And the heavens would have been the daytime sky, like what we can see out here right now. The sky would have referred to the nighttime sky. And in a world before the Hubble telescope and before getting to the moon and things like that, the only way they had to know that there was a bigger universe than the earth was to look at the nighttime sky and to reflect on the other planets and the other stars that are out there somewhere. And so they would look at the sky and they would say, the sky proclaims the work of God's hands. It goes on, it says, day after day they pour out speech, night after night they communicate knowledge. So you're saying the daytime sky and the nighttime sky, they're just over and over, they're saying about who God is. It's just going on. And this word pour out actually would technically be more like a babbling. And the image that it's creating in the original poetry is the idea of a babbling brook, that it just always goes on. It's not like sprinklers that you turn on at 2 and turn off at 3. It's an always going babbling brook that just essentially won't shut up about God and who he is and how powerful he is. And so it's saying the sky and the nighttime, it won't shut up talking about this incredibly powerful God. There is no speech, there are no words that their voice is not heard. And this author, David, is just reflecting on this is something that transcends culture. This is something that's beyond language barriers. This is a shared and deeply human experience to look at the natural world and hear the words that it's saying, that it's echoing, that there's something more powerful than us out there, that there's a deeply creative and powerful creator. Their message has gone out to all the earth. Their words to the end of the world. In the heavens, he's pitched a tent for the sun. It's like a groom coming from the bridal chamber. It rejoices like an athlete running a course. It rises from one end of the heavens and circles to the other end. Nothing is hidden from its heat. And this passage is a little bit of a slap in the face to the surrounding cultures. In that era, there would have been a lot of different gods that were sun gods. They would have represented the power of the sun, and they would have been deified. The sun would have been deified as these different gods. And so this was actually kind of lifted from a lot of ancient manuscripts. If you look at some of the tributes to the sun gods, these are the same words. The psalmist has just made one little change, which is that the sun is not the God. God is the God that made the sun. And so he says, the sun rises and circles, nothing's hidden from its heat. It's so powerful. Imagine how powerful you would have to be to make that. And the psalmist just takes these few examples to say, God is so powerful and so creative. Look at the heavens and look at the sky, look at the stars, look at the sun, and just imagine who would have to have the ability to create something like that. And it's a basic truth that David is getting at, which is simply that we can learn about God from considering nature. That is a true and simple and clear and powerful thing if we can wrap our minds around that when we consider nature, we can learn about God. But many of you already know this, and so I'm actually going to ask you to turn to one another once again and just share this. What is something you've learned about God from nature? You might say, well, the little hummingbird feeder outside my window, I've learned something from that. I've learned something about the nature of who God is. I've learned something about how he works and what he builds. And maybe you're in here this morning and you go, I don't quite subscribe to the whole God thing just now, Katie. I'm not sure. And maybe you would turn and you would share a story about something about nature that has impressed you. And maybe you wouldn't attribute it to God, but you would say, this really sticks out to me. I notice it about nature. So if you would, once again, turn to those around you. What's something that you've learned about God from your time in nature? Take just a moment. There's so many things that we can learn about God from nature. There's so many things that come to light about who God is by what he creates. We had an event this last Wednesday for our junior hires at Zoo Boise, and Zoo Boise holds a special place in my heart if for no other reason than they have snow leopards, and I'm obsessed with snow leopards. I think they're just the coolest thing on the planet, and they have these snow leopards here, and all these poor kids had to listen to all my fun facts about snow leopards that they didn't ask for. But snow leopards are so incredible for me, and for me, the way I would answer this, one of the biggest things that I learn over and over again about who God is from nature is how clever he is. He's just such a good problem solver. He's so smart. Plain and simple, it's just really, really clever. And I love the example of snow leopards for this because snow leopards live in climates where it's very, very, very cold, and there's very, very deep snow, the likes of which I pray I never experience in my life. And it's very, very deep snow, and most predators wouldn't be able to survive in this climate because you would sink into the snow when you're out hunting, and without the ability to hunt, you wouldn't make it. And snow leopards are incredible because their paws are disproportionately large for their bodies. And basically, God had the genius idea to give them snowshoes for feet, so it distributes the weight a little more evenly so they can walk on top of all of this really, really deep snow and not fall into it and still be able to hunt during these snowy seasons. But there's 100 things like that about snow leopards. I digress. You guys didn't come here to hear about snow leopards, but I look at them and I learn about them and I go, this is something I learned about God. He's so clever. He came up with snowshoes before we ever did. He said, this is a great idea. Somebody probably watched a snow leopard one time and said, I bet I could make that out of grass, okay? And figured it out. And it's one of those things that you start looking at nature and you start seeing these connections with God, and the temptation is to stay there. I know for me, for a couple of years, and I know many people who say things like, I have a dirt road church, or I don't really need to go to church, I meet God at the lake, or I'm church or the Bible, I don't know, but I connect with God outside, and I'm okay with just that. And the thing is, that's wonderful to meet God in that way. But if that's the only way in which you're engaging with God, it kind of is just a little bit of unfinished business. It's the start of something, and it shouldn't be the only something or the finish of something. To engage with God in creation and learn about him through nature is so crucial and so important to witness the world around us and go, wow, how in the world, how can that bird fly? It's way too big. We have a whole bunch of ducks that just fly over our house all the time. And I'm like, you should not be airborne. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever that you are airborne. But you look at these things and you have the ability to go, wow, God made that. But if that's all we ever have of a relationship with God, it's unfinished business. You could also say it's a half a story. Don't maybe like poke the person next to you, or don't name any names, but we all know those people that start stories, right? And then they never finish them, right? They tell a half a story and you're like, what happened to Joe? You never finished the story. You got distracted, and then they're like, what story? You're like, oh my goodness, please just finish the story, okay, right? Half of a story. If you're in school, this might look a little bit like an incomplete assignment. If you're writing an essay and you have a great essay outline and you've annotated a whole bunch of stuff and you have an excellent essay outline, but you turn in only the essay outline when the teacher was expecting an essay, your grade will reflect that she would have loved to see an essay, right? You want to be able to see this. You turn it in to the teacher and you go, okay, I hope that this is it. Another way to say it is you left me hanging, right? We all know the feeling of calling someone or getting a call and then not getting that call returned. And you go, well, half the call was there, but maybe call me back. And the last one, my personal least favorite is never mind, right? Someone says something and then you miss it and you go, what was that again? They go, never mind. And you go, oh, please tell me what you were going to say. This is essentially the feeling that the psalmist wants us to have around the transition of verse 6 to verse 7, is saying, if you meet God in nature, yes, amen, it's beautiful. It's so, so good. We know God from that. But if you stop there, this is the emotion. This is the feeling that you're going to have as you're missing the rest of it. And that's where this left turn comes from at verse 7, is this, you all of a sudden get into the law. And the song So Will I reflects this same premise, that all of a sudden it starts talking about obeying and following the law and things like this. And kind of in both the psalm and the song, you go, what is exactly going on? And the psalmist is saying there's a whole story here. To get the whole story, we need to look at instruction. Picking up in verse 7, it says this: the instruction of the Lord is perfect, renewing one's life. The testimony of the Lord is trustworthy, making the inexperienced wise. The precepts of the Lord are right, making the heart glad. The command of the Lord is radiant, making the eyes light up. A lot of the things I do with kids for work here, I have to give rules of some sort or another, and I can tell you 0% of the time do I say, time for rules, and all their eyes light up, right? This is not that's not normally how we interact. Okay, everybody, who's ready to hear the law? And you just hear, there was a great cry, whoa, yeah, like it's not normal. But this psalmist is saying there's something different about the Lord's instructions. There's something in the Lord's instructions that makes you glad to hear it. You want it. Many of us, there's many settings we wouldn't want to go into without instruction. If you got thrown into a brand new job tomorrow and you didn't know the job, you didn't know the field, you had no boss, you had no employee handbook, you had no manual, and you had no instruction, you would be frustrated because you would say, I need instructions on how to do this well. Many of us want instructions. We don't love being told what to do, but we can often kind of negotiate that within ourselves when we realize we need help with something. And this is what this author of this psalm is saying is, you need instructions to know how to live correctly. Look at nature. It's working beautifully. It's working exactly the way that it's supposed to work. The balance of the science and nature that makes it tick the way that it's supposed to tick is so intricate, and it's all doing what it's supposed to do. The rocks and the fields and the streams and the forest and all the animals and the bugs and the ecosystem and the leaves and the way that it works together, it's doing what it was created to do. It's following the instructions of God. Look how well it's working. Don't you want that for your life? And the psalmist turns around and says, God will give you instruction on how to live your life. It will make your eyes light up. You'll be excited because you'll know how to live the life that you most deeply want to live. He goes on, continuing, enduring. This is enduring forever. The ordinances, these laws of the Lord are reliable. They're altogether righteous. And then just in case you're not getting how passionate he is about it, he says they're more desirable than gold. It's better than money. It's better than an abundance of pure gold. It's sweeter than honey. It actually is delicious. It's what you want. It comes from the honeycomb. In addition, your servant is warned by them. There is great reward in keeping them. This guy is passionate about the law of God. And it's not because he hasn't made his share of mistakes. King David made some incredibly horrific breaches of the law. He did some terrible things, and he over and over again would come back to God and go, I messed up. I broke the law. I see how bad life is when I break the law versus when I'm obeying the law. God, help me to stay close. For purposes of our conversation here, I just want to be clear when I'm saying law, it's instructions. That's what David is talking about. The law is instructions on how to live the life that God intends for you to live. And so we have these two ideas put forth in this psalm by David that say basically these two things back to back. In verses 1-6, it says, God the Creator is communicated by the voice of the earth. And the idea is that you can ponder nature and come to a conclusion about God the Creator. The idea is that you can encounter the natural world, and if you listen to it, if you reflect on it, if you hear the voice that's like a babbling brook just going on day after day and night after night, you will come to some understanding of God the Creator. But the psalmist doesn't end there. He goes to the next idea and he says, actually, God the Redeemer is also communicated, but this by the voice of the law. He says, where God created things, and then we mess it up and we break the world in certain ways. We break relationships. We break our relationship with ourselves. We injure the earth. We do all of these things. Then there needs to be some sort of redemption. There needs to be some sort of healing. And this healing comes from obeying instructions. This healing comes from listening to the voice of the law. You need to know these things. And many of us would say, generally the ideas that Jesus laid out for how to live in community and how to live in the world and be kind to others and do to others as you would have them do to you, generally we would say that's a pretty good idea. And generally we would say, if we're sitting in church on a Sunday morning, I would like to try and follow God's instructions. But the difficulty is that they're difficult, right? And so we go, well, the law is a good idea, and we try it out for a little bit, and we struggle our way through it, and then we kind of give up, and then we try again, and then we kind of give up, and then we try again, and we kind of get discouraged, and maybe we don't try again the next time. And over we might go, it's a great idea, I'm pumped, I've got this, I'm going to follow God's instructions. And then we try, and expectations and reality collide. It might look a little bit like runners before and after a race, thinking they've got it in them when they maybe really don't. It might look like this.
My name is Faith. This is me before the race.
Stay up.
Feed myself. Hi, my name is Corey. This is me before the race. Hi, my name is Corey. This is me at the end of my speech.
Hi, my name is Emily. This is me before the race.
Hi, my name is Tiana, and this is me before my race.
It's before and after. It's not dissimilar to how some of us look going, hey, my name is Katie, and I'm going to follow God's instructions. And then you pan to me in 6 months, and I'm like, absolutely not. That one really took it out of me. I need a little break, right? But this is how it is how it feels sometimes when we try to follow God's instructions. It's really difficult. And praise the Lord, because David knew this when he wrote that psalm, and he didn't just leave it ending of saying, okay, you see how powerful nature is, and God created nature, so you should follow the law. He knew that we wouldn't be able to just do that. It's too difficult. We don't have it in us. And so he adds a prayer. The last 3 verses of Psalm 19 are this really beautiful prayer that ties it all together. And David just says it like this: who perceives his unintentional sins? Many of us cause chaos in the world and hurt people in ways that we don't always recognize because we just have unintentional sins. We have good intentions, by and large. We have really good intentions. But many of us lack the self-awareness in every single moment of every single day to recognize the impact that our actions have on others, intentional or unintentional. And David is well aware of that when he writes this psalm, and he actually starts by saying, who even knows his unintentional sins? He starts with the self-awareness to say, I've lived a decent bit of life by now. I've probably hurt way more people than I'm aware of. I've probably caused more chaos than I'm aware of. I've probably left more damage in my wake than I'm aware of. There's unintentional sins. I've done things that I didn't mean to do. I've done things I'm not aware that I did. Many of us know this feeling of we think we're cool with somebody, and then they block us, or they ice us out, or they don't talk to us the next time we run into each other at a social gathering, and we don't even know what we did. We go, I had great intentions. I didn't even mean to do anything. What are my unintentional sins? Many of us know the pain of living on both sides of unintentional sins. And David starts with this and says, who can even know their unintentional sins? God, cleanse me from my hidden faults. He starts with this incredible humility that so many of us would do so well to model, to say, I don't even know what I don't know. God, cleanse me from that. And he keeps going. He says, moreover, if you use this word casually this week, let me know. I've never heard it in real life. Moreover, keep your servant from willful sins. Do not let them rule over me. This language, rule over me, the psalmist is drawing it from the early chapters of Genesis, where sin is personified like a wild beast that crouches at your door and waits to attack you. That's the image of sin in Scripture. It's this terrifying, ravenous, hungry beast that's just crouching, waiting to take your life from you. That's how it's shown in Scripture. It's supposed to be this terrifying, sobering image. And David is familiar with that. And he's also familiar with willful sin. Sometimes we cause chaos and we hurt people that we don't mean to do. Other times we mean to do it. You know what I mean? Like sometimes there's some sins that we just don't care and we just do it. We go, I'm going to do what I want to do. And I know God says this, but I I'm just going to go my way on this. We all have done this at some point or another. And David is saying, God, save me from willful sin. Save me from doing the things that I want to do that I don't even want to be freed from. And he recognizes that sin is this thing that's going to try and dominate and rule over him. And he says, I need to be saved from that, because if I'm allowed to just live with my sins ruling me, if I'm allowed to just go my own way and do whatever I want to do, I will end up in a place that I don't want to be, with sin ruling and dominating my life in a way that I don't want it to. Then I will be innocent and cleansed from blatant rebellion. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable to you, Lord, my rock and my redeemer. This language is so beautiful. Many of you are familiar with these words right here on the screen. It's such a beautiful prayer. It's one that you could take with you this week and pray extensively if you want to do so. It's this image of someone who says, may the words of my mouth, may the things that other people see come out of me. May the things that people see around me, may the things that I say, may the actions, may the things that my hands see fit to do, may all of that be pleasing to you, God. And then again, he takes it one step further and says, and also the things in my heart, the things that nobody else has to see, the things that I don't bring to light, the things that are thoughts that flit across my mind that I would be ashamed if others knew, the things that I feel, the resentment and bitterness I feel towards certain things, the things that I try to hide and cover over, may even those, God, be pleasing to you. He's asking an impossible thing. He's asking that both his actions and his heart, his words and his meditations be pure and acceptable and pleasing to a holy God. And he knows that this is not something he can do on his own strength by just trying to muscle up and follow the law. So he calls God by two names, my rock and my redeemer. And he recognizes the need for a redeemer. This is a thread all throughout David's life. But this word rock is really interesting. And if you hear rock, it might bring to mind an image like this, like a little rock, and you go, oh, that's, God, I guess you're kind of cute, or you can prop a door open. I don't, like what does that mean, a rock? What's the power of a rock? But David would have been using imagery that wasn't just talking about a single rock that you could pick up or a single boulder that sits in the ground. He would have been using the imagery of a rock that would have been like this, an actual cave, a rock that you hide inside. David's life was one that was filled with trouble and evil and struggle. And he, over the course of his life, was hunted a couple of different times by folks trying to murder him. And in a particular one of those instances, he had to flee for his life, and he would have hidden in caves like this from the people and the person that were trying to actually physically take his life from him, actually trying to physically murder him. And this rock would have been his salvation. It would have been the thing that protected him from actually physically dying. Hiding inside of this rock would have always held a special place in his heart because he knew it was the thing that kept him safe. Hiding inside essentially the heart of the mountain would have been the thing that kept him protected from harm. And he pulls this imagery into this prayer with God, and he says, in the same way, I know sin is hunting me. I know sin its breath is hot on my neck. I know it's coming for me. I know it's trying to make me do what I don't want to do and become who I don't want to become. And in the same way, God, I need you to hide and rescue me like that rock hid and rescued me when someone was trying to murder me. I need you to be the rock of protection and the one that I flee to when I need to be rescued from myself. He ties all this together, calling God his rock and his redeemer. And so we see this psalm all of a sudden start to come together, and the words of "so will I" start to come together, and we start to see the connection that creation speech is one of praise. It's one in which we look at the world around us and we see more about who God is and how he intended for things to work. And then we look at the words of the law. We spend time reading the scriptures, studying the scriptures together, and we see, even in the words of Psalm 19 this morning, we see for us instruction on how to live. And then we see the servant's speech, David's speech at the end, where he prays and ties those two things together and says, that's what I need. It could be said another way, know who, know what, and love. Creation helps us to know who, and the law helps us to know what we're to do, but it all really has to come together with love and that relationship with Christ. I want to read to you words from Galatians 5. I'm going to read this out of the Message translation. I love the language that it uses to paint a picture of two different kinds of life that we get to choose between. And the psalm and the song "So Will I" is really an invitation to choose the way of life, to choose God's path, and to say, you know what? Just like nature, so will I. Just like the law says, so will I. God, help me to do that. I need some help, but I want that kind of life. And in this passage in Galatians, there's a picture painted, a vivid, very clear picture of the kind of life that we live when we live on our own without instruction and without God's guidance, and the kind of life that we live when we lean into God's guidance. So I'm going to read these words over us. It's obvious what kind of life develops out of trying to get your way all the time. Repetitive, loveless, cheap sex. A stinking accumulation of mental and emotional garbage. Frenzied and joyless grabs for happiness. Trinket gods. Magic show religion. Paranoid loneliness. Cutthroat competition. All-consuming yet never satisfied wants. A brutal temper. An impotence to love or be loved. Divided homes and divided lives. Small-minded and lopsided pursuits. The vicious habit of depersonalizing everyone into a rival. Uncontrolled and uncontrollable addictions. Ugly parodies of community. I could go on. But what happens when we live God's way? He brings gifts into our lives, much the same way that fruit appears in an orchard. Things like affection for others, exuberance about life, serenity. We develop a willingness to stick with things, a sense of compassion in the heart, and a conviction that a basic holiness permeates things and people. We find ourselves involved in loyal commitments, not needing to force our way in life, able to marshal and direct our energies wisely. Legalism is helpless in bringing this about. It only gets in the way. Among those who belong to Christ, everything connected with getting our own way and mindlessly responding to what everyone else calls necessities is killed off for good. It's crucified. Since this is the kind of life we've chosen, the life of the Spirit, let us make sure we don't just hold on to it as an idea in our heads or a sentiment in our hearts, but work out its implications in every detail of our lives. It's a sobering and powerful picture of the direction that we go in life and what fruit each direction will bring. And Psalm 19 and the song "So Will I" is this powerful, powerful calling of a song and of a psalm to say, what if the God of creation and what if God the Redeemer has another way? What if he has a life of healing and power and purpose? And so I want to end with this question. I'm going to invite you one final time to turn to those around you and ask this simple question: which kind of speech do you need more of in your life right now? Out of these speeches, which one do you most need more of? You might go, actually, I need more reason to praise God. Right now in my life, Katie, I don't have a lot of reason to praise. I don't have a lot of inspiration to be able to say, God, you're so powerful, you're so good, you're so creative, all these things. You might say, this is the one I need. I need a reason to praise God. You might say, I need a little more in the genre of instruction. I don't know the scriptures that well. I don't actually know what God wants me to do with my life. I don't know the right decision. I'm at this crossroads in my life. I don't know which way to go. I need some instruction. I need God to speak to me in that. Or you might say, I need to pray. I have both of these ingredients. I need to put them together. I just need to talk to God. I need to ask for his help with this. I need to go that direction. So once again, if you would turn to those around you and just share, which speech do you need more of in your life right now?